I wasn't supposed to be in town that night at all. The plan was simple: a 2-day conference in Dallas, a stack of presentations, and then a quiet return to a life that, for all its imperfections, I thought I understood. But that morning, the airline messaged me about unexpected technical issues and my flight was canceled just like that. No heroic effort on my part, no chance to argue with fate or logistics. I called my wife, Katie, as soon as the news hit. She sounded distracted but polite. "Oh, that's too bad," she said, "but I'm just slammed at work anyway, and tonight is the reception for my new boss. I probably won't be home until late." If there was any hint in her voice, I missed it then. Instead, I spent the day pacing our apartment, feeling aimless and watching the clock move slower than usual. The thought of spending the evening alone made me restless, almost jittery. Around 5, when the sky outside turned that familiar city gray, I decided to surprise Katie at the reception. It wasn't planned, I just told myself I wanted to be supportive, maybe meet her colleagues, maybe see her smile when she realized I cared enough to show up. The event was held in the grand hall of the Midtown Plaza Hotel with big glass doors, marble floors, and an endless echo of small talk. I arrived a little late, not wanting to draw attention, and saw Katie immediately. She was wearing a blue dress I hadn't seen before, her hair pinned up in a way that made her look both elegant and strangely unfamiliar. I watched her for a moment from across the room, smiling at how easily she mingled, laughing at some joke I couldn't hear. Then I saw him, Andrew, her new boss. He was tall, well-dressed, carrying himself with a practiced confidence that seemed to draw people in. For a while, it looked like any other corporate gathering, Katie talking with her coworkers, Andrew making the rounds, the two of them occasionally sharing a word or a smile. But as I made my way through the crowd, something changed. I noticed Katie slipping away from the main group, almost as if she was being pulled aside. She and Andrew stood together near the bar, away from the chatter and the lights. I saw her laugh at something he said, a bright, open laugh I hadn't heard in months. Then, suddenly, he put his arm around her waist, almost as if it was the most natural thing in the world. It wasn't a quick, friendly hug, the kind you give a colleague in front of everyone. It lingered, his hand resting a little too long, a little too low. For a moment, Katie didn't move. She looked up at him, her face flushed in the light, and I felt something twist in my gut, a flash of confusion, then a bloom of anger I tried to push down. And then she saw me. Our eyes locked. There was a second, maybe less, where her expression froze as if she wasn't sure what to do next. Then, with a kind of practiced grace, she slid away from Andrew's arm and called out to me. "Jason," she said, loud enough that a few people turned to look. "You made it." She walked over and took my hand, her smile wide and a little too bright. For everyone watching, she played the perfect hostess, pulling me into the center of the group. "Everyone, this is my husband, Jason," she said. "He surprised me. I thought he was in Dallas tonight." Andrew followed, smiling like nothing was out of place. Katie laughed, looping her arm through mine. "Our boss is a hugger, he can't help himself," she said, her tone playful, almost teasing. "He hugs everyone, don't you, Andrew?" He chuckled, shrugged, and the group laughed along with them. I tried to match her smile, tried to fit myself into the scene. "Good to meet you," I said to Andrew, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, confident. For a few minutes, I let myself be drawn into the conversation, talking about safe topics, work, travel, the weather, while my mind replayed what I had just seen. Katie steered the conversation with practiced ease, never letting any awkwardness take hold. She complimented the catering, made a joke about my missed flight, and even convinced the group to pose for a photo together. Someone snapped a picture of us, me with my arm around her, her leaning into my side, Andrew just behind her with that same easy smile. If you looked at the photo, you'd see nothing but a happy couple at a work event. No one would suspect that anything was wrong, least of all me. But as the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Katie seemed more interested in talking to her coworkers than to me, always glancing over my shoulder or checking her phone. When I asked if she wanted another drink, she said she was fine. "I'll drive you home," she insisted, even though we both knew I could call a cab. When I tried to bring up what I'd seen, just the two of us, near the coat check, she laughed it off. "Oh, Jason, don't be silly," she said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. "You know how these corporate types are. Andrew hugs everyone." "Really? Besides, he's married and half the office is here. Can you imagine if anything actually happened? It would be the talk of the company." Her tone was so casual, so dismissive, that I almost believed her. Almost. But something about the way she said it, the speed with which she redirected the conversation, the way her hand tightened around mine for a moment and then dropped away, made me wonder if I'd walked in on a script she'd rehearsed before. On the drive home, she turned up the radio and sang along to a song I didn't recognize, her laughter spilling out the window. I tried to ask about Andrew again, but she cut me off with another joke, another story about someone at the party, another reason to keep the focus away from us. That night, lying next to her in bed, I stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying every detail. The way Andrew's hand fit around her waist. The look in her eyes when she saw me standing there. The perfect, practiced way she explained it all away. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was reading too much into one awkward moment, letting the worst part of my imagination take over. But as I drifted into a restless sleep, I couldn't help but feel that a door had opened. One I couldn't close, no matter how hard I tried. The next few days dragged on in a strange fog. At first, I tried to push the nagging feeling to the back of my mind, to pretend like everything was fine. But the more I tried to ignore it, the clearer it became. I started noticing things that had once seemed insignificant, things I had overlooked in the rush of everyday life. Little details that, when pieced together, painted a picture I wasn't ready to see. Katie's behavior had changed. At first, it was subtle. Small things. She was suddenly too busy to talk about her day when I asked. When we used to have dinner together, she'd tell me all about her work, her friends, the latest office gossip. But now, when I asked her what was going on, she'd give me vague answers, or worse, she'd change the subject entirely. She would smile and nod, but her eyes were distant, and I could never shake the feeling that her mind was somewhere else. It wasn't just her lack of interest in me. It was the little things that started to add up. Katie used to leave her phone lying around, never caring who saw her messages or calls. But over the past few weeks, she had become obsessive about it. She carried her phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. When she was home, she'd turn the screen away from me, like she was hiding something. If I walked by while she was texting, she'd quickly minimize the screen, pretending to check something else. It wasn't subtle, it was deliberate. One evening, I came home to find her getting ready to leave again. "Just another urgent meeting," she said, throwing on her jacket. It wasn't the first time, but there was something different in her voice this time, a nervousness I couldn't place. She kissed me on the cheek as if nothing was wrong, but there was an edge to her kiss, like she was trying too hard to seem normal. She left in a rush, barely waiting for me to respond to her quick goodbye. I watched her go, the door clicking shut behind her. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the familiar sense of warmth I'd always felt when Katie was around. Instead, I felt an emptiness settle in my chest, a weight that hadn't been there before. I couldn't explain it. All I knew was that something had shifted, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to know what it was. Later that week, she came home late again, with the same story, a dinner with colleagues. She looked exhausted, her hair tangled from the wind, her eyes tired. But when I asked her about the evening, she couldn't name a single thing about it. Not the restaurant, not the food, not even the people she'd been with. "It was just work stuff," she said, brushing it off with a smile. "You wouldn't be interested." But there was no explanation, no detail. It was like she was shutting me out completely. I told myself it didn't matter. She was probably just stressed, maybe even overworked. It wasn't the first time she'd come home late. We had our own busy lives, after all. But that night, I stayed up, waiting for her to come back. I stared at the clock, counting the minutes as she drifted farther away. When she did return, she wasn't the same. Her eyes had a different kind of shine to them, like she was thinking about something else. Maybe someone else. I tried to act like everything was fine, but I couldn't shake the thought that I was losing her in ways I didn't understand. It didn't stop there. Katie began running every evening after work. At first, it was a casual jog, a way to clear her mind, she said. But soon, it became a ritual. It was always the same time, right after dinner. She would change into her workout clothes, grab her earbuds, and leave without saying much. Sometimes she'd be gone for an hour, sometimes longer. I tried to be supportive even though it seemed odd. "I'm just trying to stay healthy," she'd tell me. "You should try it too, Jason." But I wasn't stupid. I knew something was off. Katie had always been more of a night owl than a morning person, so this sudden obsession with evening runs didn't add up. Why was she so determined to be out of the house, running through the streets of the city, as if she couldn't wait to leave? I wasn't sure what she was running from, but I knew it wasn't just the stress of work. Her behavior only grew more distant as the days passed. She was irritable, quick to snap at the smallest things. When we did speak, it was short and impersonal. I couldn't get her to talk to me the way she used to. It was like I was a stranger living in my own home. And the worst part? She refused to talk about our plans. We had always talked about the future, vacations, our dreams, getting a bigger apartment, but now, every time I tried to bring it up, she deflected. We'll talk about it later, she'd say, but there was no later. No follow-through. It was as if she had checked out without telling me, as if I was the last to know. I couldn't remember the last time she had asked about my day or even cared enough to engage in the small things that had once kept us close. It wasn't like her. Then, one evening, after she'd come home late again, I walked into the kitchen to find her sitting there, scrolling through her phone. I stood behind her for a moment, watching the way her fingers moved across the screen. She didn't notice me at first, lost in whatever message she was reading. I couldn't help myself. I stepped closer and said, "Katie, what's going on? You've been different lately." She jumped, her phone screen flashing off before I could see anything. For a moment, she just looked at me, her face blank. Then she sighed, looking down at the counter. "I'm just tired, Jason. It's nothing. I'm just busy." Okay. But I knew it wasn't just that. I could feel it, the tension, the unspoken truth hanging in the air between us. I wanted to ask more, to press her until she broke, but I didn't. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Later, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Katie was already drifting off beside me, her back turned toward me. The clock ticked away the silence, each second heavier than the last. The doubts were growing, building like an avalanche in my chest, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to know the truth, even if I wasn't sure I could handle it. The following day, I received a message that I wasn't prepared for, a video from a colleague at the office. The subject line was simple: "You should see this." The message was brief, almost too casual. I sat at my desk, heart pounding in my chest as I clicked on the file. The video opened, and for a few moments, nothing seemed out of place. The camera was shaky and the lighting was dim, but then I saw it, Katie and Andrew, her boss, walking side by side out onto the terrace of the reception hall from a few nights ago. In the video, Andrew leaned close to her. He touched her arm gently, but then his hand slid down to her waist. I could see Katie laugh, a little too loudly, too freely, as she looked up at him. It wasn't a quick laugh, this was the kind of laugh you share with someone you're comfortable with, someone you trust. But the most disturbing part of the video came next. Without hesitation, Andrew kissed her on the cheek. It wasn't an innocent gesture, a mere friendly peck. No, it lingered longer than it should have. Katie didn't pull away. Instead, she smiled, touching his hand with what looked like real affection. My chest tightened as I watched the footage again, then again. The images blurred for a second, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. There it was, irrefutable proof. I felt sick, a cold dread settling over me like a weight I couldn't shake. I knew what I had seen, and now the question was how to deal with it. The video had been taken just moments before I had walked in that night. In hindsight, the way Katie had acted when I arrived made perfect sense. She was trying to cover it up, trying to divert attention away from what was happening in plain sight. I had been fooled into thinking it was nothing, into believing her laugh, her clever excuse. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, my mind racing. The noise of the office faded away. My thoughts consumed me, and I couldn't focus on anything else. The more I thought about it, the more it hurt. How long had this been going on? Was it just Andrew, or was there more? I tried to calm myself down, to think clearly, but the anger was bubbling up. I wanted to confront her immediately, demand answers, but I knew it wouldn't be that simple. I knew Katie. She was good at turning things around, at making it all seem like my fault, making me question my own reality. I needed to be careful, to think this through before doing anything rash. I walked home that evening, my mind heavy with the weight of the video. The city felt different, colder somehow. My steps echoed in the empty streets as I replayed the conversation I knew we'd have later that night. Katie was already home when I arrived. She was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. When she saw me, her face lit up. "Hey, you're back early," she said, her voice light, too light. I didn't know how to respond. The video was in my pocket, burning a hole there, but I couldn't bring myself to show her. I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. Instead, I asked the only question I could muster. "How was your day?" Katie glanced up at me, her eyes betraying nothing. "Busy," she said. "Work's been non-stop lately." She leaned back, stretching her arms above her head. "I'm glad it's over." I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. The image of her with Andrew, laughing and touching his hand, was burned into my mind. She was sitting there, in front of me, pretending that everything was fine, like nothing had changed. But it had. Everything had changed. I stood there for a moment, staring at her, trying to find the right words. But I couldn't. My throat felt tight, like the words were lodged there, refusing to come out. I walked past her, to the kitchen, pretending to be busy, to find something to distract myself from the storm that was raging inside me. Katie called after me, "Jason, are you okay?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't trust myself to speak without letting the anger spill over. I was so angry, so hurt, but I couldn't let her see that. Not yet. I needed time to figure out how to confront her, how to expose the lies without letting her twist it all back on me. It wasn't until later that night, after dinner, that I finally broke. Katie was lying in bed, scrolling through her phone again. I sat next to her, my mind working on overdrive. My hand shook slightly as I pulled out my phone and opened the video. "Here," I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. "Watch this." She turned toward me, confused. "What's this?" "Just watch," I said, my voice more forceful than I meant it to be. I handed her the phone, watching her expression change as she saw the video. At first, she just stared, her face frozen. Then her lips parted, but no words came out. I could feel her tension from across the room, the way her shoulders tightened. When the video finished, there was a long silence. I waited for her to say something, anything, but she just sat there, staring at the screen. Finally, she looked up at me, her face pale. Her voice was soft, almost too soft. "Jason," she said, her voice trembling. "It's not what you think." I felt the rage bubbling up again, but I swallowed it down. "Then explain it to me, Katie. Explain what I just watched. Explain why I had to find out this way." She sat up, pulling the blanket around her. "It's not what you think," she repeated, her voice stronger now. "Andrew and this isn't what you think it is." "Then what is it?" I demanded. "Because it sure looks like more than just a friendly hug, Katie." Katie opened her mouth to say something, but she stopped herself. She took a deep breath. "I wasn't going to tell you," she finally admitted. "But I was going to leave you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe for a second, couldn't wrap my mind around what she was saying. "What?" I whispered. "You were going to leave me?" She nodded, her eyes avoiding mine. "I thought you'd never understand. I thought I could just let go of us without making it a thing. But I couldn't. I don't know why I couldn't. But I couldn't just walk away without saying something." I sat there, my mind spinning. The weight of her confession was almost too much to bear. It wasn't just the affair. It was the lies, the betrayal, the quiet way she had checked out of our marriage, piece by piece, while I was still trying to hold it together. Katie had planned this, and I had been too blind to see it. The silence in the room was suffocating. I stared at Katie, the woman I thought I knew so well, and yet now she seemed like a stranger. How could she sit there, looking at me with those eyes, the same eyes I had seen every day for the last few years, and tell me that she had planned this all along? Her words echoed in my head. "I thought you'd never understand." It hurt more than anything else. It felt like she had already moved on, had already made her decision, and I was just left behind, waiting for the inevitable. The worst part wasn't even the affair. It was the realization that I hadn't seen it coming, that she had been slipping away from me bit by bit, like sand through my fingers. But then, something shifted. Katie, the woman who had just confessed everything, suddenly seemed vulnerable. She was no longer the confident, collected woman I had known. She was sitting there, eyes wide, almost pleading with me. "Jason, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I wanted to shout, to scream at her, to demand an explanation for every little thing, the late nights, the phone calls, the distance. But the words wouldn't come. All I could do was watch her, watch the way her fingers trembled as she twisted the corner of the blanket in her hands. After a long pause, Katie spoke again, her voice soft, almost apologetic. I don't want this to end like this. I don't want us to be this." She motioned between us, but I couldn't quite figure out what she meant. "We can fix this, Jason. We can work through it. We can still No, I interrupted, my voice hoarse. No, Katie. It's too late. You've already made your choice. You already knew what you were doing. You planned this. My chest tightened, the weight of the words sinking in deeper. I stood up, pacing across the room, trying to keep my composure, trying not to break down. You can't just pretend everything is fine, like nothing happened. Like this doesn't matter. Katie looked up at me, her face filled with confusion and desperation. I didn't want it to be like this, Jason. I never thought it would get this far. I shook my head, the anger rising again. You didn't want it to be like this? You didn't want this? Then why did you go through with it, Katie? Why did you lie to me every single day? Why did you keep me in the dark, pretending like everything was fine while you were out there with him? I could feel the tears pushing against my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. Katie's eyes filled with tears too. I never meant for you to find out this way. I thought I could. I don't know, just fade away. Make it easy. But I can't lie to you anymore. For a moment, I almost felt sympathy for her. I almost felt sorry for the woman sitting across from me who had been so lost in her own turmoil that she had forgotten the one thing that mattered, us. But the pain, the betrayal, was too fresh. I couldn't forget what I had seen. I couldn't forget the way she had pretended everything was normal while she was planning her escape. Why him? I asked, my voice shaking. Why Andrew? Why didn't you just tell me if you were unhappy? Why didn't you just leave instead of dragging this out? Why make me feel like it was my fault? Katie didn't answer right away. She just sat there, looking down at her hands as if she were searching for something, maybe an answer, maybe a reason, but she didn't find it. I don't know, Jason, she finally admitted. I really don't know. I don't have an excuse. I don't know what I was thinking. Her voice trailed off and the room fell into an uncomfortable silence. I didn't know what else to say. What more could I say? She had already made her decision. It was clear now. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved, was gone, replaced by someone who had made a choice without me. I had been nothing more than a placeholder, a man she kept around for convenience until she was ready to move on. And that was what hurt the most, knowing that she had already moved on, emotionally, long before the affair even began. Katie stood up slowly, her hands trembling as she wiped away the tears that had started to fall. I don't know what to do, Jason. I don't know how to fix this. I never wanted to hurt you. You can't fix this, I interrupted. It's done. You've already done the damage. The words felt like they had come from someone else, someone cold and detached. But I couldn't stop them. You've already checked out, Katie. This isn't just about one night or one mistake. This is about everything. All the lies, all the things you kept from me. Her face crumpled and she took a step forward, reaching out for me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to be like this. I stepped back, my heart pounding in my chest. No, Katie. You can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal. You've already made your choice, and now we both have to live with it. She looked at me, her face pale, and I saw the realization hit her. It was too late. There was no coming back from this. Please, she whispered, but the plea was weak. She didn't even know what she was asking for anymore. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The silence that hung in the air after Katie's tearful apology felt more suffocating than anything I had experienced in the last few weeks. After she left the room, I was left with a cold emptiness, a pit in my stomach that only seemed to deepen as the minutes passed. I knew that what had just happened wasn't the end. It couldn't be. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. I tried to push the thoughts from my mind, but I couldn't. I needed to know more about why this had happened, why she had gone so far, why she had lied to me for so long. For the first time since I'd found out about Andrew, I couldn't ignore the pull to uncover every last detail. I couldn't let it go until I knew the whole truth, no matter how much it hurt. It wasn't long before I found it. As I sat in the living room, mind racing with thoughts of Katie and Andrew, I absent-mindedly began looking through some things. I wasn't sure what I was searching for, maybe answers, maybe clues, or maybe just something to explain the inexplicable. My hand brushed across the stack of papers on the coffee table and I noticed something out of place, Katie's old planner. It was a leather-bound notebook, worn from years of use. It had always been her go-to for organizing everything from work meetings to our weekend plans. I hadn't seen it in weeks, but now it was right there, in plain sight, tucked between some bills and empty coffee cups. Without thinking, I flipped it open. It had been months since I'd looked through it, and as I began scanning the pages, I wasn't prepared for what I would find. The first few pages were typical appointments, reminders, the usual run-of-the-mill details of daily life. But then my eyes fell upon something that made my blood run cold. On a page dated 2 months ago, in neat, precise handwriting, Katie had written something that immediately stopped me in my tracks. Step 1. Gradually distance myself. Be less available. Less responsive. I blinked and reread it. My heart pounded in my chest. I flipped the page and it only got worse. There were more notes, specific instructions, almost like a guidebook on how to disengage from me. Avoid spending too much time together. Don't let Jason get too close. Be busy. Make excuses. Don't talk about Andrew unless you have to. The words jumped off the page, each one like a slap in the face. I felt a sick, nauseous twist in my gut. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't just an affair. Katie had planned this. It wasn't just about Andrew. It was about her decision to pull away from me, slowly, methodically, until she was ready to walk away entirely. The emotional distance between us had been calculated, designed to make the eventual breakup easier for her. I had been nothing but a casualty in her plan. I turned the pages faster now, not caring to savor the details. There it was again, more instructions. Step 2, financial independence. Make sure I have control. Keep the finances separate. Gradually take things out of the house. Don't let Jason notice. And at the very bottom of the page, in small, neat handwriting, was a note I couldn't ignore. Don't mention Andrew more than once in conversation. Keep it casual. Make him a work colleague. It was all there. Every single step. Katie had mapped out the dissolution of our marriage as if it were a business transaction. She had planned this, all of it. The affair, the distance, the lies, everything had been carefully arranged. I slammed the planner shut, my hands shaking. The weight of what I had just read crushed me. I felt as if the ground beneath me was crumbling, leaving me with nothing but the sharp edges of betrayal and hurt. My mind couldn't catch up to what my eyes had seen. This was no longer just about Andrew. This was about Katie, about the woman I had loved, systematically preparing to leave me before she even told me she was unhappy. I stared at the closed planner for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. But there was one more thing I had to do. I couldn't leave it like this. I couldn't just sit with these revelations and pretend everything was fine. I needed to know what had happened, what Katie was really thinking, what she had really planned. I needed to find out everything, no matter how much it hurt. That was when I made the decision to confront her, but not alone. I had to know if anyone else had known. If her family, her friends, had been involved in her plan. I took out my phone, heart heavy with dread, and dialed Lisa, Katie's sister. I hadn't spoken to her much lately, but now I had to know the truth. I had to know how far Katie's plans had reached. Hello? Lisa answered, sounding a little surprised. Lisa, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I need to talk to you. It's about Katie. There was a long pause on the other end. I could almost hear the wheels turning in her mind. What's going on? She asked, her tone wary. I exhaled slowly. It's bad, Lisa. She's been planning this for months. She's been pulling away from me slowly. She's been lying, and I found something I need to show you. I need to know if you knew about this. There was a beat of silence, and then Lisa spoke again, this time quieter. I had no idea, Jason. But I've seen it. I've seen her do this before. She paused. Katie's done this with other relationships. She's always the one who ends things without saying anything, without giving a real explanation. I froze. What do you mean? She's done this before. Yes, Lisa said, her voice soft but firm. She's left people, Jason, without warning. She makes her exit clean, no mess, no drama. It's just the way she does it. I don't know why, but she's always done it. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Katie had done this before. She had walked away from people in her past, leaving no trace behind. And now she was doing it to me. I wasn't special. I wasn't an exception. I was just another person in a long line of relationships she had quietly discarded. I sat there, the weight of the truth crashing down on me. Katie wasn't just leaving me. She was repeating a pattern, one she had perfected long before I came into the picture. And I had been blind enough to believe she was different, to believe that I was enough to change her. But now I realized I was just another casualty of her plan. I thanked Lisa for the information, though I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just learned something I wasn't supposed to know. As I hung up, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. Katie had made her choice long before I had figured it out. I didn't sleep that night. The events of the past few days ran through my mind in an endless loop, like a movie I couldn't turn off. Katie's confession, her apology, the planner I had found, Lisa's revelations, it all mixed together in a haze of confusion and pain. I couldn't believe I was here, that this was happening to me. But there was no turning back now. I had to face it, no matter how much it hurt. The lies, the planning, the betrayal, it all felt suffocating. I spent the next day in a fog, my mind clouded with thoughts of Katie. What was she really feeling? Was she truly sorry, or was she just sorry that she got caught? I couldn't answer those questions. All I knew was that I needed to take control, to stop being the passive observer of my own life. I needed to confront Katie properly once and for all. But before that, I needed answers. I gathered all the evidence I had, the video, the planner, the messages from Lisa, and sat down, preparing myself for the conversation that would end it all. I wasn't going to allow myself to be manipulated anymore. I wasn't going to let her spin this into something it wasn't. The truth had come to light, and now it was time for Katie to face the consequences. That evening, I found Katie sitting on the couch, reading a book. She looked up when I walked in, her face soft with that fake warmth she had been showing me lately. She must have thought everything was still okay. But I wasn't fooled anymore. I stood in front of her, holding up the planner, the video, everything I had uncovered. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second before she quickly composed herself, a practiced mask slipping into place. But I could see it, the guilt, the fear, the realization that her secrets were exposed. Jason, she began, her voice wavering. No more lies, I interrupted, holding up my hand. I know everything, Katie. I know what you've been doing. I know what you planned. You don't get to hide behind excuses anymore. Her face went pale, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw her vulnerability. The strength she had put on for so long seemed to crack under the weight of the truth. She didn't deny it. She didn't try to justify it. Instead, she hung her head, tears welling in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Jason, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to fix it. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat, but I forced it down. You didn't know how to fix it? You've been planning this for months, Katie. You didn't think about fixing it, you thought about ending it, and you've been preparing for it the whole time. Katie's shoulders trembled as she fought to hold herself together. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to explain that I was falling out of love, that I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I stood there numb. You didn't have to lie. You didn't have to go behind my back and make a plan to leave me. You could have just told me. I know, she said, her voice cracking. I was scared. I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't know what else to do. I thought if I made it easier, if I planned it out, it wouldn't hurt as much. But I was wrong. I've hurt you more than I ever could have imagined. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the evidence in her face, tell her how much she had destroyed everything. But instead, I just stood there, staring at the woman who had once meant everything to me, now broken and regretful, but still not enough to undo the damage she had done. The conversation stretched on, each word a dagger I couldn't avoid. But even as Katie admitted the truth, there was a part of me that couldn't fully process it. How could I? How could I accept the fact that the woman I had trusted, the woman I had built a life with, had been planning to leave me all along? And then came the unexpected part, the part one hadn't prepared for. As the night wore on, Katie looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of pain and clarity. I've been selfish, Jason, she said, her voice steady now. But I want to make things right in whatever way I can. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. I felt my heart tighten. This wasn't the Katie I knew. This wasn't the woman who had hidden her true feelings, the woman who had lied and manipulated for months. No, this was someone else, someone broken, someone who had finally come to terms with the truth. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know if I can ever forget what you've done. But I'm not going to let you control my life anymore. Katie nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand, Jason. I'm sorry. I'll leave if that's what you need. And that was it. The end of a chapter. The end of everything we had built together. In the weeks that followed, things didn't get easier. There were no grand gestures of reconciliation, no dramatic moments of forgiveness. Katie packed her things quietly, no apologies or grand goodbyes. She left with the same calm detachment she had used to navigate the breakup, her emotions carefully hidden behind the mask of someone who had made peace with her decisions. I didn't try to stop her. I couldn't. She had already left me in every other way, and the physical departure was just the final nail in the coffin. I didn't know what was next for me, or even if I wanted to know. But I did know one thing: I wasn't going to let her define the rest of my life. I wasn't going to let this chapter be the end of my story. After Katie left, I moved to a new city. I opened a barbershop, a fresh start. I didn't want to dwell on the past. I met new people, made new connections, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I started living for myself. My story was mine again. I wasn't going to let Katie's betrayal shape who I was going to be. I didn't need her forgiveness. I didn't need to know why she did it. I just needed to move on.